Once again, the evidence shows that President Trump was correct when just about everybody else was wrong.
Ultimately, I'm always right.
And it always seems to work out this way. Hey, do you remember during the heart of the coronavirus crisis, the stay-at-home orders, that President Trump was the only one who seemed to have any urgency about getting back to normal? He was concerned about the effect staying at home could have on people. Drug addiction, alcoholism, they could all rise, right? It makes sense.
You know what you're going to have more than anything else? Drug addiction. You will see drugs being used like nobody's ever used them before, and people are going to be dying all over the place from drug addiction. Everything's closed up. You're in your house. You're not allowed to move. People are dying with that, too. You look at drug addiction. You look at suicides. You look at some of the things that are taking place. People are dying that way, too. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before.
Now, if you're a member of the media, you just have to roll your eyes and dismiss anything that President Trump says. And they did.
You talked about higher death. Are you talking about suicide? Like, help us understand.
I'm talking about many forms.
Is the risk here a depression? Is that what you're getting at?
Mr. President, you've also said that at one point that you thought more people might die from the economic tragedies and the economic problems in America due to the coronavirus outbreak. What health officials are telling you that? And Dr. Fauci, could you speak to that, the idea that there might be mental health and suicide related to this? Would that outpace at some point the virus's impact on this society?
So skeptical all the time. They never gave him credit for, hey, he's the leader of the country. He's got some wisdom. He has maybe some common sense, more than they have, and access to information that they may not have. Take a look at this headline. It corresponds with their attitude in the briefing rooms. The White House effort to prove that staying home is as deadly as the coronavirus comes up short. Take a look at these numbers, though, from the Centers for Disease Control out just recently today. U.S. drug overdoses, December 2019 to 2020, up 30%. That is a staggering increase. And they denied it every step of the way. They just wanted this thing. Anything that President Trump said, they rejected or they resisted. And why? Well, they had it made. These reporters, these members of the swamp, there they are. Notice, they were always being paid during this crisis. Everybody who was badgering the president, they were being paid. Just like this guy, Rahm Emanuel. He's a rich man, one of the top Democrats in the country. Here he is describing what the lockdown will be like for President Trump politically. You see how happy he is? This is in March of 2020 rather. He is excited by the political prospects of what coronavirus could do to the country. And oh boy, turned out that he was right. All right. George W. Bush is back in the news. Former president, take a look.
It's unbelievable how that society changed from the brutality of the Taliban. And now all of a sudden, you know, sadly, I'm afraid Afghan women and girls are going to suffer unspeakable harm.
Is it a mistake, the withdrawal?
I think it is, yeah. Because I think the consequences are going to be unbelievably bad.
George W. Bush thinks we should stay in Afghanistan. Well, the war there started on September 11, 2001. And nobody ever talks about this, but we gave the Taliban basically a 1-month head start. We didn't start bombing targets in Afghanistan on September 11th or September 12th or September 20th. We waited until almost a month later in October before we started striking back. That was one hell of a head start we gave them and one heck of a mistake. You know, a lot of folks believe we would not be in the situation in Afghanistan that we are in today, basically a stalemate, getting out in such a sloppy way, if President Bush had not been thinking about Iraq all along. We held back in Afghanistan so we could put resources in Iraq, and we are still paying the price for that. You know who called it out? And I respect him so much for this. He said it before the invasion of Iraq, and he said it when he was running for president. President Trump.
Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake, all right? It was a mistake. The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. obviously it was a mistake.
So
George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
1,000% correct. 1,000% correct. However, it is time to get out of Afghanistan, but we're doing it in a sloppy way, just like Obama and Biden got out of Iraq. You know what that gave rise to? ISIS. We got out in such a hurry. It was so haphazard and unprofessional. ISIS came about as a result. What's going to happen now as we get out of Afghanistan? And it's a rush and it's a mess. And it looks like the Afghan military that we have been propping up for so long is folding in a spectacular fashion. Pretty sad. Pretty sad. All right, so we have potentially another war of some kind brewing, a civil war in Afghanistan. And who knows, does Joe Biden want a civil war in America? Did you see the speech yesterday in Philadelphia about voting rights? Pretty wild, pretty wild. Here's Joe.
We're going to face another test in 2022, a new wave of unprecedented voter suppression and raw and sustained election subversion. We have to prepare now.
As Joe Biden would say, what he did yesterday was sick. It was really dishonest.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.